Repeat after me. I am not my work. I am not my work. My work is not me. My work is not me. In grad school, my fiction advisor, whose name is Bill Lychak, who's a lovely man, had each of us say this aloud before our writing critiques. And the purpose of this is to liberate yourself from the story of your thoughts, from the thought that the quality of your work or your productivity is the same as the quality of you. Because thinking this way leads to scared, small work and a really defensive and protective you. It's so valuable to realize as a consultant and also just as a human being in the world when your ego is running the show. If you're going to create something that truly serves users, you have to be humble and you have to listen more than you talk, which I'm sure is shocking, but it is really hard for me to do. When we show designs or content plans to people, to stakeholders, to anyone, it's not about showing them that and then hurrying up and closing the door. It's about having a conversation and not shying away from questions. And you have to be the model for vulnerability and openness in the room when stakes are high and people are getting stressed. That's the job. And it's a really remarkable one. And it's a really hard one sometimes. If you are asking yourself, okay, why do we care about any of this, Lindsey? You certainly wouldn't be the first. I mean, can't we just put in our 9 to 5 and toss up a Squarespace theme and give everybody access to it and let them put up whatever they want and say that the site is for anyone and skip all of this annoying strategy stuff? We could. We totally could. But our work wouldn't be as effective, and we wouldn't grow, and we wouldn't really connect with others. And that's what I love about content strategy. It's not machine replaceable. It's a human effort. And it's courageous to make a good faith effort to do good work with other people. And now I'd like to invoke one final metaphor before I release you from this webinar. I will miss you, by the way. In 2017, I went to Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago to see a play called The Flick by Annie Baker. The Flick takes place in a rundown movie theater called The Flick that's clinging to 35mm film instead of switching to digital. And by takes place in a movie theater, I mean that when the lights come up, you, yourself, in your theater seat are facing 10 or so rows of empty movie theater seats. You are in the movie theater. And the characters in the play are a few employees who work at the theater. The play, The Flick, is really polarizing, which is part of why I really wanted to see it. And it's polarizing for a couple reasons, the first of which is its style. Most of what you see are the employees between movies coming into the theater to sweep up popcorn and just clean up. And as they're doing this, they chat with one another, like you do. There are long pauses and lots of short pauses and medium pauses. There are minutes of nothing but silence. It's hyper-realistic dialogue. So you just, as an audience member, have to hang in there with them, with the characters, and just be in the room while they chat and while they get to know each other the way that people actually do. And after being in the room for 4 or 5 conversations with the same 3 or so people, you start to see things like, he's acting a little jealous. Or it'll start to dawn on you that one character has a crush on another one. And nobody's walking in the room saying lines like, well, like I told you before, Logan, I'm considering leaving my wife, right? There's no hard exposition. Everything unfolds naturally, just like in life. And because of this, there is the second polarizing thing about The Flick, which is that the runtime is 3 hours and 10 minutes. The runtime is so polarizing that Steppenwolf put a huge poster in the lobby with a 900-word explanation called A Note on Runtime and Use of Silence in Annie Baker's The Flick. And in that explanation is this quote. Pauses and moments of reflection are spelled out very clearly by Annie Baker. Scripted stage directions include, quote, a happy pause in which they realize they've broken the tension, and then an awkward pause following that happy pause, quote, and, quote, a very long, uncomfortable pause, quote. It is interesting to note these because Baker is clearly creating acting moments within pauses. Silence becomes very active. People loved this play, and people hated hated this play. Here's a quote from obviously a hater. Meanwhile, this modern hipster play won a Pulitzer Prize. And this is the cliche of any rule, right? In any discipline, that you have to learn the rules so that you can know when to break them. And that is ultimately what has made me confident in content strategy, because it's not about fitting my, quote, creative self into a rigid idea of what a strategist is or what a strategist does. It's more about exploring enough to learn what really works for me and the way I think and the way I want to work with my clients. It makes me love it, and it helps me do better work. This is a quote from Interview magazine, where Greta Gerwig interviewed Annie Baker. Annie Baker says, quote, "Theater constantly teaches you that perfection is impossible. It has a life of its own. Every night it's different. The audience changes it. Sometimes an actor skips a really important line. Sometimes someone cries when they're not supposed to cry. Sometimes they don't cry when they're supposed to. It's a different story every night, and that's so infuriating and also really beautiful." This is the frickin' same as a website. You're going to do the work, and you're going to find the shape of it. You're going to define it and learn to work with others and squash your ego. And still, the website isn't for you, and it probably doesn't belong to you. I mean, if it does belong to you, then go nuts. But you'll make a plan. The plan will be perfect, and your plan will set the stage for a perfectly tuned, governed website that runs just like a watch, no extra parts. And then you'll watch it change with content and with time, with new authors as the organization evolves, as people leave their jobs and take new ones. And that's what is meant to happen. We don't make images of websites or ideas of websites. We make websites. And this is great. And if you do the work to give your content strategy a backbone and you push through to do the good, hard work, you will creatively empower both yourself and the people around you.